already started recording. I'm going to refer to my notes every now and then because I don't have everything totally memorized, so be patient with me on that. So I will have to put on my glasses every now and then. But we're just going to look at paying what you owe after you graduate and you've accumulated loans. Now, the first thing I would say is hopefully you don't accumulate loans. Hopefully you can pay your way as you go through scholarships, working, things like that. That would obviously be ideal. I was very fortunate to be in that situation. Lived on a farm, and my stepdad, we raised cattle, and I was able to sell cattle. And so every other semester I paid for with the sale of my cattle, saved up money from working. So I was very blessed in that area, never had to deal with this stuff. So that's another reason why I'm not as proficient at this as maybe somebody else would be. So we're just going to kind of look at what we'll cover, basics of repaying direct loans. And you have this in your pamphlets, repayment plan choices, and resolving potential repayment problems. Graduating with debt, owing money. The bad news, obviously you must repay that. Scholarships, grants, paying as you go. Obviously when you walk away with that degree, you don't have to pay anything. If you've had to borrow, unfortunately you're going to have to pay. Serious consequences if you don't repay, obviously. The government, which is usually who you borrow money from for college, wants their money back. You can also borrow from banks, credit card companies, if you want to, and they're definitely going to want their money back. So the good news is you have a choice of repayment plans, and you have to make some smart decisions to help you reduce your costs. So that's what we're here to look at, is some of those decisions. So what you owe, obviously the principal, as you accumulate principal. You know, if you borrow, I think the example they gave me here in the thing, and it might come up on the screen, is if you borrow $5,000 a year and it takes you 8 semesters, how much money?
What was it again?
$5,000 a year for 8 semesters.
$40,000.
$40,000.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of money.
That's
Now here, I don't think we would get to those numbers. I don't think our tuition would ever be that way. I was visiting with a student last semester. He graduated, and he told me he owed about $24,000 after 4 years. So a little, almost half, but still, that's a lot of money to owe. So you have the principal. Obviously, then you have interest, as you all know. That's the charge for borrowing it. Guess what? Banks, the government, they're not going to let you just borrow the money and then pay back the same exact amount, because they're in it to make money themselves to a certain extent. Calculated as a percentage of principal, obviously. Again, you know these things, so we're going to go through it pretty quick. The principal plus your interest that you are charged would be your total debt. Your principal here again, basic loan amount, the capitalized interest, which is interest accrued and added to the principal. And interest can be accrued different ways. And I'm going to have to refer to my notes when I get to that point. Sometimes it's accrued as you're going. Sometimes it's just is accrued once you borrow the money. Other times it's accrued later. We'll get into some of those things. Equals the principal. Here is some a website that you go on to figure out how much would be due and your repayment amount. It's again in your notes there. So interest, the number of days since the last payment, times the principal balance, times the interest rate factor. I'm trying to remember which slide we're on here. 6, I think. I thought it gave me a note here. Equals the monthly interest. So the lower you can get that interest rate factor, that's going to obviously be important. The quicker you can pay off that amount, the principal, and the interest, the lower your interest is going to be. So that's what we're looking at. Here it was in the next slide, I think. More about interest. Interest rates are based on the type of loan, lower for subsidized loans. My notes here said that as of July 1st, 2015, a subsidized or unsubsidized loan for undergraduate is 4.29%. That's the government rate. I don't think that's in your notes. It's in mine. It's 5.84% for graduate level work. More times than not, a lot of people can make it through their undergraduate without borrowing, because they do have grants and scholarships and things like that. A lot of people, when they get to do their graduate work and go towards their master's, there's no grants in that level. Some scholarships, I'm assuming, there are work study programs, things like that you can get into, but people end up borrowing a little bit more in their graduate programs. My wife, I don't think borrowed any in her undergraduate at a community college and then in her Oklahoma State, but she had to borrow quite a bit when she got to the University of Tulsa for her graduate program because it's a pretty expensive college for one, plus she didn't have that kind of money. Okay? So interest accrues differently on different loans from disbursement of unsubsidized loans, meaning the interest grows as soon as you start borrowing it. So if you borrow, let's use our $5,000 semester example, you borrow $5,000 in the fall semester, interest starts accruing on that. And you borrow another $5,000 in the spring semester, interest starts accruing on both the amounts. A unsubsidized loan during the grace period can also, during the grace period of unsubsidized loans dispersed between, and this is somewhere I get a little bit confused, just understand that it's a little different. I apologize for my confusion. I read through that several times. Since I've never dealt with it, I kind of feel a little awkward trying to explain it totally, the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized. So.
Subsidized, the government is paying is basically
That's right.
paying your interest.
I remember reading that.
Unsubsidized, your
You're
interest is accruing.
Right.
But then they have the date there. If you got a subsidized loan between the 2012 and 2014, you will start accruing the interest as soon as you graduate until the 6 months when you repay it. But if it's after 2014, you won't start accruing interest until you start paying it.
See, I think Candace needs to come up here.
I've done
I
enough.
appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Say that again so that...
Okay, unsubsidized, you are accruing interest as soon as you take it out. As soon as you take out the loan.
Okay.
Subsidized, the government is paying that interest until you graduate. If the loan was taken out between 2012 and 2014, like July 1st to July 1st, the interest will start as soon as you graduate. If it was taken out before 2012 or after 2014, your interest will not start until you start repaying it the 6
You have a
months.
grace
Your
period.
grace period of 6
6
months.
to 9 months of grace period after the date you graduate. And what they're doing there is allowing you to go out, you graduated, go out and get you a job, establish yourself a little bit before they start making you pay it. So they almost, all loans would give you a little bit of a grace period, 6 to 9 months. And then, again, depending on which way it is when the
So
interest
you might
starts
have part of your subsidized loan accruing interest and part of it not accruing interest. So you gotta really be sure what's what.
Yeah.
And you don't have to wait that 6 months though to start paying. I mean,
Right.
if you have a good job and you can start paying right away. I mean,
That's something we're gonna
and you
look
can
at.
pay on your interest while you're in school too.
And this is where it's good to get to know your financial aid people in the
Right.
offices, so, because they can help you with this stuff, so. The definition of a term is a period of time you agree to take to repay it. A lot of people say 5 years, 10 years, 25 years.
50?
Obviously, the quicker you can pay it off, the better off you are, so we're gonna look at some things here. The shorter the term, it will require larger monthly payments, but the quicker you pay it off, the less interest you're accruing, so the quicker you'll be able to get it off. The total cost of the loan, reduce the total cost of the loan. And it's all about that interest. The interest is what really fluctuates it. You can say, well, if I owed $40,000 and I'm paying $200 a month, and it takes this many months, it should be the same amount at the end. It's like when you buy a house. We bought a house for $150,000. I'm making up a few of these figures, but you can kind of get the gist. If we were to pay it off in 15 years, our total payoff might be $230,000. So we'd have $80,000 in interest. And again, I'm making up some of these numbers. If we paid it off in 30 years, we're paying off, our amount is less each month, but at the end, because that interest keeps accruing, our total expenditure out might be $280,000. I mean, it's crazy how that interest, because a lot of times what banks do, and I'm not sure on these type of loans, what banks will do with mortgages and stuff like that is your first initial payments are always interest. You're hardly ever decreasing that principal. That seems very unfair to me, but we won't go into that. The longer the term will require smaller monthly payments, so you have to look at your situation. What is best for you? What type of job do you have? What kind of income do you have? That's what would be scary with me and your part is you don't know from month to month what
Right,
income. So you might want to keep it smaller, and then You might want to have a longer one, but if you make a little more that month, throw a little bit more that decreases that principal, so that can always help. I have a weird little system. I like round numbers, and my previous bank mortgage payment was like $871. So I would just throw in an extra $29 each month to make it $900 even, plus that $29 was going to decrease my principal. Any little amount can help. So the other 800 some dollars, a lot of that was going towards interest at the beginning. They've got to figure it out. We'll just put it that way. So increases, it's smaller payments, but your total cost at the end of the thing is actually a lot greater. So again, just try to remember those things. Here's some examples. Alina owes $20,000 in federal student loans and earns $29,500 a year at her job as an EMT. She's conflicted about whether to pay off her debt as fast as she can or stretch out the payments. So she lists the pros and cons. Let's help her. 10-year repayment plan. She's going, or the pros of that, it's less interest, so lower overall cost, because she's only paying for 10 years, so that interest is only accruing for 10 years. She also has a possibility of loan forgiveness after 120 payments, if any balance remains. We'll talk about loan forgiveness in a minute. The 25-year repayment plan, lower monthly payments, so the less risk of a repayment problem. You know, if you're owing $100 a month, that's a lot easier to pay off than a $300 a month, right? If you come into a situation where you maybe don't have as much money that month. The possibility of substantial loan forgiveness after 120 payments. We'll talk about that again in a second. The cons, or the negatives to it: larger monthly payments for the 10-year plan, so there's potential for repayment trouble. But on the 25-year plan, more interest, so higher the overall cost. What you've actually ended up paying back is going to be greater. So which would you choose? Each one of you have to look at your own individual situation, know your income. That's why, kind of why we're playing this budgeting game, so you can look and figure out what you can spend in each category. Can you eat less one month? Can you rent instead of owning to pay back your payments faster? Can you, a lot of things you can look at. Eat out less. Don't go to CC's Pizza as much. Kayla works at CC, so. Any free coupons for us today? Pop quiz. We'll get to that right page. Why does a subsidized, and you can't answer, Candace.
No.
Why does a subsidized loan cost less to repay? We really didn't delve into it too much, but somebody can take a wild guess at it.
Because it doesn't accrue interest right away.
Right, because it accrues less interest, because as Candace was nice enough to point out, the government is paying that interest for you while you're still in school. An unsubsidized loan, you're accruing that interest as soon as you get out. So the answer is B on that one. Question 2, what happens when interest is capitalized? This one should be easy. I don't know why they use capitalized instead of accrued. It's just added to the principal. It's kind of basically the same term. So C is your right answer there. It'd be nice if it was forgiven. And we're going to talk about loans, possibilities of loans being forgiven in a minute. Which term requires the largest payments? The shorter or the longer? We know it's not a fixed term.
Shorter.
The shorter. So it requires larger payments. So the answer is A on that one. So, okay. We do have 2 more quizzes, I believe, as we go. Repayment schedule. You've graduated. You have a grace period. 6 months usually, 9 months maximum, I think, is what I read. Then you have to start making payments. Okay. Your grace period. You don't need to pay interest during the grace period. Unpaid interest after the grace period is added to principal of all unsubsidized loans. I knew this was going to come up at some point. And subsidized loans dispersed. I don't know why they changed the game.
Well, because it had changed, but then Obama, I believe it was Obama,
It's
then passed
politics.
a bill. Yeah, then Obama passed a bill that took it back to where it was before,
Okay.
because they said it wasn't really fair. I mean, that was one of their attempts to make a college more affordable, and it was at the time. That was also during the time when they had kept the interest rate lower, but after that, it went up.
Political
by
question. What does everyone
1%.
think of one political candidate's promise to everybody gets free college education.
I am so torn on that, because to me, that,
This is going to be a short conversation, so.
well, that makes, to me, the 2-year degree, that's like getting a high school diploma anymore. It's like anyone can do it, so it doesn't mean as much. So therefore, the 4-year degree is gonna mean less. It's gonna be more like a 2-year degree, and then so on and so forth. You're gonna have to go further and further in your that's just how I look at
I
it.
agree part with that, but that's still the person that's
I
putting
think
the
it's
time
great.
and effort.
Yeah, I think it's great.
It's a great.
I'd love to have had 2 years free,
well,
but, you know,
wouldn't everybody?
yeah.
I mean,
I had
think
mixed
the more
feelings on it.
education that anybody can get, the better off their life,
Right.
their
Sure.
quality of life is.
And not
But
But I
everybody's
don't know
gonna take
how,
advantage of
I'm
it.
not intelligent enough to figure out how, in the big scheme of economy, how that affects
Right.
anything.
and I'm not, what I'm most concerned about, and we'll end this discussion here, because I didn't want to get into politics, but how somebody's got to pay,
Right.
somebody's got to pay.
Yeah.
And we'll just leave it at that. So I don't
Well,
see how anything
Right now,
is
you
free.
have the A+ program,
Right.
and the senior, it's easy for them to participate in A+ program, it really is.
But
And
not
they
every
can get 2
school is
years for
eligible.
free. Exactly.
That's another problem
So
I've had
it's
with that.
kind of just increasing that, but like you said, someone's gotta pay.
Okay,
Anyway.
enough. Sorry. Grace period reduces your overall cost by borrowing by starting to pay sooner. So you can, as Candace pointed out, start paying off your loan as soon as you graduate. You can pay it off, guess what, before you graduate.
Yeah.
If you've borrowed, maybe you only borrowed money your freshman year, and the other semesters and years you didn't have to borrow any money. You can start paying that off anytime. And the quicker you start paying it off, the better off, the quicker you're going to get it done, the better off you're going to be with your overall cost. So, choosing a repayment plan, 6 potential repayment plans. You must qualify for certain plans, but the requirements vary. Sorry about this. You can switch between plans, depending on your situation. No prepayment penalty on any of the plans, so if you come across an inheritance or win the lottery and want to pay it off early, you can pay it off early and not accrue that interest, and there's no penalty. A lot of loans, there is a penalty out there if you pay off early, because guess what? The company doesn't really want you paying off early, because they want to accrue that interest. If you ever, I'm getting a little off subject again, if you ever seen the ads for no interest and no payments for 2 years on furniture, things like that. Well, that sounds great. If you can get it, if you can go buy it and get it paid off in 2 years before they do start accruing interest or making payments, that's the way to go. Go do it. But what happens if once you start hitting those interest rates, the interest rates are really high, so you got to be careful. Again, tidbit, I do know a little bit about that. So, the standard plan is the default choice. If you don't make a choice, this will be one that's chosen for you. It's the least expensive option overall. You have fixed payments of combined principal and interest, so they'll figure out your payment each month. The term of up to 10 years, so you can't go beyond that, so you have to do 10 years or less, whatever you agree on with your financial person. Your eligible repayment plan for the public service loan forgiveness program. And you're going to ask me questions, what careers fit into this? I don't know. But there are some careers, if you are in a public service, if you're working in a public service, you could possibly have some of your loan forgiven. Okay, I do know in education, they've passed some laws and stuff. If you teach math or science, which are 2 difficult places to find teachers, as a former principal, I know that, you could possibly get your loan, some of your loans forgiven if you go into those professions. Now, would I encourage you to go into this profession just to get your loans forgiven? No, but there are other things. Working in other types of government programs can get you that. So I think they give you here, yes they do, a place you can go and look at some of the jobs that might fit in that category. So again, I'm a firm believer you shouldn't go into a profession unless you truly, in your heart, enjoy doing it and want to spend the next 30 plus years or longer doing it. Now, you know, it doesn't mean you have to, but that's the possibility. You know, don't go into something just because you could possibly get your loans repaid. But if you're in an area and that career that does some of these careers do fit, might be something to look at. So, an extended plan, you must have a minimum of $30,000, and the FEL, the FFEL, I forget what it said. It stands for Federal Family Education Loan, so it's just another type of loan. So you must have a minimum of $30,000. Payments may be fixed or graduated, and we'll talk about graduated in a minute. You can have a term up to 25 years. That's a long time to be paying back a loan, but that is an option, especially if you've had to borrow quite a bit. Lower monthly payments, but higher loan cost overall, especially if you go that 25 years versus the 10 with the first plan. The graduated plan, I kind of like this one. It's a monthly payment determined by loan balance and length of repayment. A term of up to 10 years or 25 years. Lower monthly payments in the beginning while you're still trying to establish yourself. You started a new job and you're making $40,000 a year, so you can handle this amount of repayment each month. But then something changes and your monthly payment increases every 2 years because they expect that you're increasing and improving yourself over time. So you might start out paying $100 a month and up it to $120, then $150 every 2 years. So you can get it paid off a little bit faster. So I kind of like that plan because usually as you progress through life, you start making more money. Unless you're like me and you change a little bit of careers totally and go backwards. Real good at that. Income contingent plan. Payments are calculated annually based on 20% of your income, household size, and loan balance. And that does include your spouse's income. So it's just the income into your household. I don't know if they could include your children's income. Usually those aren't being contributed to the household. But so they do a little calculation and look and try to get you to a payment plan of 20%. That's quite high in my opinion to be paying 20%, but if it's workable, it's workable. Interest not paid monthly will accrue. Interest capitalization is capped at 10% of the original loan amount, which is good. It's an eligible repayment plan for public service loan forgiveness program, again, if you're working in one of those careers. And the remaining balance after 25 years of payments may be forgiven as well. Now again, who wants to really pay for 25 years just to get some of it forgiven? I guess they figure if you've done a good job of making payments that long, they're willing to forgive some of it. So, not my favorite. Income-based plan must have a partial financial hardship, subsidized loan interest accrual forgiven during the first, either 2 years of repayment or a few years. I don't know if that's first few.
It says few.
Okay. I just can't read it up there very well. If not covered by the borrower's payments, payments calculated annually based on 15% of your income, household size, and loan balance. And remaining balance after 25 years of payments may again be forgiven. So it's really similar, just a little bit different.
So based on
based on the
50%
hardship.
of income, household size. So maybe they take your income and then your household size and say like on your taxes, then they figure out what, it's not actually your full income, it's
Right.
maybe what, so it's an adjusted income.
Yeah, probably the more people you have in your house, they adjust it down.
Yeah.
The fewer people, just like your FAFSA loans and stuff like that, so, or your grants and stuff. Eligible repayment plan for the forgiveness program again as well. Pay as you earn, this is the one I really like. It's newer, they talked about it. Eligible for loan after October 1st of 2011. Payments are calculated annually based on 10% of your income, household size, and loan balance at the beginning. So that's a little bit less percentage. The remaining balance after 20 years of payments may be forgiven. So I think they didn't emphasize this here. I thought they emphasized it in my notes here. Was that as you're progressing through and starting to earn more money, you should be paying a little bit more in. And so it's kind of that income. It's similar to the other two, but this one they're hoping you'll do it on your own, I think. So, comparison. Alice and Bob each have $35,000 in loans with a 4.29% interest rate. Alice repays with a standard plan, makes 120 payments of $359 a month. So her total repayment is $43,110. So she basically paid $8,110 in interest. 120 payments is how many years? Cody, come on, math, easy math. How many
Say,
months?
what is it again?
120 payments, 12 payments a year, how many years?
10.
10.
Yep.
So you're paying for 10 years, you paid $8,110. Bob repays with a fixed extended plan, makes 300 payments. A lot. A lot more. Let's see, 300 divided by 12. I can't figure that myself. A lot more.
300.
240 would be 25 years.
Yep.
Yeah, see, that was easy. Why didn't we know that? He's only paying $190 a month, but he pays it for 25 years. So his total repayment on the $35,000 loan is $57,212.
Holy moly.
So he paid less each month. Wasn't that awesome? Which would you rather have? Again, you have to look at your own individual situation, though. You might not be able to afford $359 a month. So you might have to go with an extended plan. You know, with the extended plan, again, you have to owe at least $30,000. You might not have this option if you don't know that much. But again, you can, as you're progressing, make a change. Start paying more. You can always pay more than $190. Bob could have said, hey, this month I can pay in twice the amount, or $500 this month, or whatever, and that helps him decrease it. But again, the longer, I'm trying to emphasize, the longer you're making the payments, even though they're less, it really impacts you. Years ago when I was teaching business classes, had a guest speaker come in and talk about how interest really can start, and he was more looking at when you invest money, how if you invest early at the age of 17, 18, 19 years old, how much more you'll have when you reach 60 than you would if you started at the age of 40 and reached 60. And investing the same amount of money each month, that interest really kicks in. It does the opposite. It kicks in here, but it does the opposite to you. It makes you pay more instead of earning more. So, all plans have advantages and disadvantages. You need to consider the alternatives of standard plan payments more than 10% of your income. So that standard plan is going to meet anything, you know, if you have less than that. Income-based or income contingent plan, if you're likely to qualify for forgiveness. Again, those would be advantage if you're working those types of careers. Graduate plan, if you expect substantial salary increases within a few years, it's a good plan to go to. Did I give you one of these things? Okay, sorry. That's now looking so sorry. My bad. You should have said something. Making payments. You repay the lender or servicer who bills you and administrates your loan. Find a lender or servicer at that website. Really a good way to avoid making sure, and I've done it a couple times in my life, forgot to write a check that month for something. I'm bad about if I don't see something coming across in the mail or whatever, I'm bad about forgetting. Because some people that prepare a good budget know exactly, hey, my house payment's due. If I don't get something in the mail, I've done, the two things I can remember distinctly was renew my license plates. And that only comes every 6 months or every year or whatever, but wow, I forget about that. And I've twice got pulled over for tickets because I didn't renew my license plates. It's a little different story, but if you keep track, but having an automatic payment is a good thing. The only thing I do automatic payment is my insurance. I don't do much else on that because I do like knowing where my money's going each month and keeping track. And I do a good job, but unless I get something, I might forget. So it ensures you never miss a payment or pay late, and it may reduce your monthly interest accrued by a little bit, 0.25%. So the bank will give you a little bit of a discount if you set up on automatic payments because they know they're going to be getting their money and they know your account numbers and all that fun stuff. Quiz. Which repayment plan costs less? Let me get to my page. Given the same principal and interest rate. Any guesses? Huh? The standard plan.
The shortest term.
What What is the disadvantage of a shorter term?
Larger monthly payment.
Larger monthly payment. So again, you have to look at your own situation. What is beneficial for you? What helps you the best? But again, I encourage you to look at that end result too. You might have to put yourself under a little bit of a hardship each month, so you have a little bit less overall payment at the end. Which repayment plan provides for loan forgiveness of those three? The income-based. So when it first came out that they were allowing in the education field, math and science, and there's a few others they allowed it. Maybe they might have a few years ago put special ed into that. I was very upset because that wasn't fair to me as a business teacher, which is what I did. And I was like, you're discriminating. But you know, it's hard to get people in those areas, so that's a little bit of an advantage for somebody to, if they're wanting to be a teacher, to maybe pursue those areas. So I kind of grew out of that. Consolidation, you may combine your loans, the one loan with a weighted average interest rate. Advantages and disadvantages of this. If you have several loans, you can consolidate them into one. It's easier to keep track of and manage payments. You might have a term up to 30 years. It may cost more overall because the more money you have in one loan, then it's a higher interest maybe if you can find something that has a lower interest. You may lose eligibility for some possible benefits such as cancellation and interest rate discounts. Maybe that yellow loan there gives you an interest rate discount, but the others don't. So when you put it into one big loan, you might lose some of those things. So after 10 years or 120 payments of on-time payments and qualifying repayment plan, the standard, the income, what's ICRME? I don't remember.
Income,
Cost reduction or something.
yeah.
If you're continuously employed full-time, at least 30 hours a week in a qualifying public service position, again, there's a lot of them out there. You can look some of them up.
I have a question.
Okay, shoot. Candace might be able to answer.
On a standardized plan, the term is 10 years anyway.
Right.
So really, if you're making your payments on time for 10 years, you're not getting anything off. You're going to be paid off, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the standard doesn't have the loan forgiveness. Is that what you're asking?
Well, it says,
On that last one.
But think about it this way, okay, I know where you're going with this. Okay, the
Yeah,
other
that's a
ones
good
have a loan forgiveness after 25 years, but the standard plan, you pay it off in 10 years. That's 15 years you're not still paying on it. So you're
kind of-
still probably.
okay, no,
kind of-
I see what you're saying. I thought that they were saying,
Yeah, I see where
because
you're
it says
confused.
public service loan forgiveness,
Right,
and it says standard on here, and I
Right.
thought, well, that doesn't make sense to me.
right.
But this
And you're-
public service loan forgiveness isn't just for if you go over 25 years. If you get in a public service position, I think it's 5 years
Yeah,
if you're
I think there
paying,
is.
they have a set payment. If you pay that for 5 years, it's forgiven. So you're not actually paying, your payment may be $550 on a standard loan. If you get on their public service loan, as soon as you get on that, they lower your payment to a certain amount. I know someone who's paying $25 a month for 5 years and their loan's paid off.
What do they do?
Their
What's
loans
their-
are given. They're in a public service.
Okay.
They've got a public service. And they had been paying on their loan before because they weren't in. And then when they got in that public service, then for 5 years, he has to pay $25 and it's forgiven.
And
Yeah,
what's
there's
a
a lot of
list of
different-
your public service? Is there a list of public
Yeah.
service?
Isn't that what you said right there?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
on this website.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can check that out. And I think she's right. Different public service jobs have different year amounts. So some of them might, I think the education is a shorter term, so you might be able to do a standard line.
But then the bad part of that is you have to stay in that position, you might not be making very much at that
Right.
time. So you're in a position you're
You
not
have to weigh all
making
your
much,
options,
so
right.
yeah, there's a lot of things to weigh in every one of these. I mean,